We started this journey in 1993, actually, when we were approved as missionaries with our mission. Being away from our own country, from our own language, from our own culture, the Lord really used it to point out some things in my heart that I didn't know were there. And we've said so many times to each other that we thought that we came to Africa to do a great work for God, but God really brought us here so that He could do a great work in our own hearts. Mm-hmm. And the African people have taught us so much. Their lives are much more difficult than people in the West. They have many more inconveniences. Life is much more of a struggle. And so the Kenyan and Tanzanian people, they taught us in a great way how to be patient, how to be kind. They're just the most hospitable people that we've ever been around. They would instantly invite you into their home and treat you like you were a long-time friend or a relative. And so we have learned just some valuable lessons over the 25 years that we've been here.
You learn perspective. You know, you can complain about various things, but then when the woman who comes to visit you just spent 3 hours walking in the heat of the day, only to go home and have to fetch water at 4 a.m. the next morning, it just helps you to have a little bit more perspective. I think that was partly what we learned too. I remember it was our first year in Tanzania, and the power was out 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, sometimes more. It was difficult. We had an electric stove, so it was difficult to cook for my family. We were homeschooling. Our children some of them did their school online, or at least on the computer, and it made it very difficult. And I remember when Pastor Petro just laughed at us, and he said, "Come to the village. We don't think about the power going out," because they didn't have power. And the perspective wasn't to feel sorry for him. The perspective was, is this absolutely necessary to glorify God?
We arrived in Kenya in 1995, and we immediately went to language school for 6 months. And then we worked with a missionary for a short period of time. They consider it upcountry. So it's about 3 hours from Nairobi. It's in a place called Nyahururu. And we met Peter Chege there. And he was just a young man. He was unmarried, but he had recently been saved and had a real zeal for the Lord. And our hearts just really connected with him. And so when we went to Nakuru to start our first church in 1997, he was with us, and he played a huge part in helping us with that church plant. And that's been 23 years ago since we started that church. And Peter is still a close friend of ours, and now he is married, has grown children, and is still preaching the gospel and pastoring, and we just praise the Lord for those relationships.
Well, Pastor Bill Brouwer has been one of my greatest mentors and a friend of a lifetime. As I related to you, we've known each other since 1994. So it's been many years, 26 years or so, and he's poured his life out to me. I remember those first years when he came. He taught in our Bible Institute. He taught us through many classes and helped us to graduate with a general Bible diploma. And the things that he taught me have deeply impacted my ministry. Looking back, working with him in Nakuru, I can say that's where I cut my teeth in ministry. He allowed me opportunities to preach, to teach, to help start churches. So the impact that he's had on my life is immeasurable. I can really not measure. And the things that he has taught me, in return, I took them, and even today, that's what I'm doing.
Some people that may think that a missionary is just a pastor in a foreign country, but the work of a missionary is not really to pastor in a foreign country. I have pastored churches in Africa out of necessity because there were no trained nationals that were ready and prepared to be pastors. But our goal has always been 2 Timothy 2:2. To train others. And so as soon as we are able, when we enter a place, Kenya, Tanzania, we started Bible institutes where I wasn't just pastoring a church, but we had a place where we could train Kenyans, train Tanzanians. And so the Bible Institute that we started in Nakuru is still going on. The Bible college that we work with in Mwanza has now been turned over to Tanzanian pastors. And so we used to teach all the classes as missionaries, but God raised up a great group of Tanzanian pastors and leaders. They graduated from our Bible college, and now they are teaching all of the classes and running the Bible college. And so that is an integral part of missionary work, is being able to train so that eventually the missionary doesn't need to be there any longer. And like the Apostle Paul, the missionary can move to a new place to start over again.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that struck me about Bill and Tam is how committed they are in empowering the locals, Kenyans themselves, to take the lead in the ministries that are needed here. So whilst usually you'll be used to missionaries coming and them taking the lead and never having a vision for the locals actually leading the ministry, that has not been the case with them. From the onset, they have been clear that they would like to train and equip and empower the fellow believers among them here so that they could take the lead role in these ministries.
To bring the gospel to people that have never heard. We were in some fairly remote places where the gospel had not been preached. And just to start in Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God, and to explain and to share with them from the Bible how they were created, how the world was created, and who the true God was and is. It was all worth it.
And to have them ask questions like, what tribe was Jesus? Has Jesus ever been to Mwanza, to Tanzania? Where is he at now? I mean, They just didn't know.
Na lengo letu tulikuwa tunataka tuanze makanisa vijijini, sehemu ambapo hakuna makanisa. Na unajua huko kwetu wengi wanapenda kuanzisha makanisa mjini kwa sababu labda kuna sadaka au nini, lakini yeye na mimi Mungu alituongoza kwamba tukaanzishe makanisa huko vijijini. Na nimesema nilipokutana naye nilikuwa Mkristo mchanga, labda nilikuwa na miaka 3 au 2 nilipokuwa nimeokoka. Lakini baada ya kukutana nao, wamenitia sana moyo. Kwanza mchungaji Bill kila siku alifanya kazi ya kunifundisha mimi peke yake nyumbani kwake. Kila siku tumesoma Biblia mstari kwa mstari, sura kwa sura, na nimeuliza maswali mengi, na amenisaidia kwa kweli kiasi kikubwa kuweza kukua kiroho na imani yangu kuongezeka, na pia kujua neno la Mungu, na nikasikia na wito kabisa wa kuweza kuendelea kufanya kazi ya Mungu. Kwa hiyo amenisaidia sana.
The African people have really challenged our commitment, what we are willing to do for the Lord, and watching how they can go through so much hardship and not complain and be joyful. It's really been a challenge to us.
It also makes me think about African services, especially in Tanzania, are 2-3 hours long. It's very long. And, we had this long service, and prior to the service, we had seen an audio Bible. We had given out audio Bibles to the various churches, like I said, so many illiterate. And this was, and then the exciting thing was to see their face when they realized it was in Kisukuma. It was in their tribal language, not just Swahili. And so it was one Sunday, and I noticed that the Bible was out in the sun. It was solar powered, and it was charging. And then after the service, I saw somebody walk out, and then all these people just gathered together. And even after a 3-hour service, they all sat on the cement floor of the church and listened to the Bible.
So that's how they did their Bible reading since they were illiterate.
Neri kujerea kwe tori wana ikojo giteria miarwa uma wike uyafumire kuresi iswe okarira shikongo nankana uyohana kahamkanira kariya higuriya kunkanira gari hayageki uyu homwele na kankayageki uyu aliza handu mayanari ntare wane kuno yani tangiro ko bizaho abise bose tukwanukura gambango ryaburimbika kufuma kuri we uyu arishikana mu yose kuno ishiragiro tokimpa mu nzira ya Musa areyeha shizire shiko.
Huduma ya kufanya kule vijijini, unaweza ukaona jinsi Mungu alivyomtumia mchungaji Bill pamoja na mimi kuanzisha makanisa kule vijijini, kwa sababu kila tulipokuwa tunafika unashangaa kwa nini hapa hakuna huduma ya neno la Mungu. Lakini watu wa vijijini wamesaulika, lakini sisi tunamshukuru Mungu kwamba tumeweza kuwafikia watu wengi. Na sasa kwa kipindi ambacho tumefanya kazi na mchungaji Bill kwa miaka 14, tumeweza kuanzisha makanisa 10.
Nairobi in a lot of ways is like a Western country. It's very advanced, and a lot of the problems that Western advanced countries have, Nairobi now has. Anxiety, depression, the stress of trying to make enough money to feed your family, to send your kids to school, to keep food on the table. And we noticed that a lot of the Kenyans, they have these serious difficulties, and they really don't know where to turn to in the Bible. So we've really seen a need for advanced discipleship and counseling in specific areas. And so we not only do a lot of counseling, we do a lot of marriage counseling, and then Tammy counsels a lot of ladies, and I'm counseling some men. But we also feel the need to train other Kenyans to counsel biblically.
Bill is doing a good job with, like others who are doing the same. And especially in this country, in Africa, there is a need for training. And so people like Bill, with his experience and training, are very much needed to raise young men, like what he's doing here at Nairobi Baptist Bible College. There's need for his work to continue, and more to be done in terms of training young men and women. And just like the Bible says, how will they know unless someone goes to them? So I believe the harvest is plentiful, the need is there. We have so many pastors who are running churches that have no basic training in theology, or in the ministry. And so I believe, and it's my prayer, that that God would enable him to continue doing the work that he's doing, and that God would send more people like him or his family that would come and train. We hear a lot about doing the ministry, but many of the people doing the ministry locally have no good training. And so I believe he's doing a great job in training men and women to serve God, and there's need for more of that.
...2020 was easily the hardest year for us in ministry. The year when the lights went out, the darkest of the years, the deepest of the valleys for us. And what I already kind of knew about Bill and Tammy became very evident when things got super hard. They were there with us, walking together with us. In many ways, the place where we are at right now, a place where I feel like I'm in the best place I've ever been in as far as ministry goes. And my wife and I will say we're in the best place we've ever been in our marriage. A lot of that is the credit of the ministry that God has accomplished in our lives through this couple.
I remember we hadn't been here for very long, and we're sitting in the middle of the church service at Emmanuel, and I just was overcome that this is what we've prayed for 25 years. This right here. Nationals leading strong, theologically sound churches, sending missionaries out, starting or preparing people to start churches, discipling. And it was just this full circle. When we came, specifically Tanzania, but even in Kenya, just not really seeing seeing the fruit of national leadership. And so it's been part of the excitement about being in Kenya, being in Nairobi, is being a part of Emmanuel and seeing how they are doing that work. And we've said so many times, you have one life to live, and how are you going to live that? And there's trials along the way. You miss your kids, you don't get to be a part of different things. Deaths happen that you're not there for. But we have one life. And I think we'd both say that we spent it well.